Hello, everybody. My name is Anne-Marie Hoftailing, and I am the co-founder of Story Imprinting with my spectacular partner, Holly Amaya, here today. And we are going to be talking about something that I think is on everyone's mind, regardless of where you are in your profession, what kind of work you do, what kind of organization you're in. And that is, where the hell is your mojo? And we're all looking for it. Is it under the sofa cushions? We don't know. It's a constant source of discussion with executives that we coach. It's a constant source of discussion about how to keep your team motivated. You know, our space is being invaded. It's all becoming one. We're work and, our home life. And this kind of constantly being on in some way, shape, or form tends to be, it's degrading our motivation, our energy. So what are some of the things you share with our clients about motivation? And what do you think the easiest things people can do to sort of return back to a little bit of that fire?
So I think that from a global perspective, right, just like looking at this at 30,000 foot level, you're absolutely right. We're in this moment where everybody, most folks are still working from home, right, to the extent they have job functions that allow them to do that. And if you've never worked at home before, and particularly against the economic backdrop that we have found ourselves in this year, there's this sense to rush, like you're constant, right? And then then you need to put a load of laundry in, or then your kid comes and needs something, and you just you become fragmented. And so to make up for that time that you have, where your attention has been diverted, your day gets exceptionally elongated. I have been working at home for many, many years, as I know you have, Anne-Marie, and I still have found motivation to be difficult during this particular time, right? I mean, I had acclimated already to what it means to work at home and not be in an office and all of that kind of thing, and to have more distraction and interruption probably than someone who's working within four walls, of an office building. So I think you kind of have to recognize that. And if you're a manager, side note, have some compassion for the people that are working under you, because they are feeling this too. If you are feeling this, they are feeling this, right? So just PSA. I think from a real strategic perspective, something that we've talked about a lot with our clients, most of whom are dealing with this in a very acute way right now, is to really, abandon this idea that you're gonna sit down and get 4 hours of work done uninterrupted. That ain't happening anymore. That is just, unless you are going to be ensconced in an office someplace where there's literally no one to interrupt you, it's just not gonna happen. Particularly if you have children at home, and particularly if they're not in school, right? So the number one tactic I think that we see the light bulb turn on for folks is this microburst strategy that we talk about. So sit down and get 20 to 30 minutes of really focused, concentrated work done. And that does not mean working on something and then checking your email, or working on something and checking your text. Unless you're an ER doctor on call, or surgeon on call, you don't need to, you can spare 20 minutes and do something else. Am I right? I mean, and we all have the ego of well, so-and-so needs me and this client needs me. They can make 20 minutes, right? So you can get this project done. So I think that's one strategy. And then also, let's just be real, Anne-Marie, Zoom fatigue. It's a thing, right? Everybody is tired because we're constantly on Zoom, right? And, I don't necessarily know that there is, Zoom is not going to go away, particularly as we've seen the companies doing extraordinarily well since the pandemic, and I think it only will continue to do so, because I think as a practical matter, folks probably aren't going to be going back into the office in the foreseeable future. But I also, I learned this from you. Meetings should be very economical, right? And we have a whole video on how to run effective meetings, and we're going to be doing a training on how to have more effective meetings later this month. But go into every one of these meetings with a laser focused knowledge of what you want to get out of it, what the agenda is, right? If you're running the meeting in particular, do you really need an hour? Can you do this in 15 minutes? Because I also hear from a lot of clients that they just feel like they're on calls all day and they can't get anything else done. And that's demoralizing, right?
It's totally demoralizing. And I also don't know that it's productive. I don't know. I've been on calls that were an hour long that for sure could have been 20 minutes or 25. And I think cut out all that chatter in the beginning. Tell people if you're leading it, I want to make this a super economical call. So we're not going to go through anything about the weather or how you're doing today. We're just going to dive right in. I do it all the time. Holly watches me do this all the time. People are incredibly grateful because a call that could have been an hour is 15 minutes.
Right.
You would be shocked at how much time we waste. And if you are a manager, what are you doing having people on 8 hours of Zoom calls a day?
Right.
Does every single person need to be on that call? Very often they don't. So I think being mindful of let's have more thoughtful, economical, powerful meetings. If people go off topic, say so. Say, hey, I think that's a really interesting point, and also let's save that for another meeting, or let's save that for a future discussion. Today, I want to make sure we get through this content. I think those things really matter in keeping people energized and not just absolutely depleted by this constant sort of parade of meetings of one after another, after another, after another.
Right, absolutely, yeah. And I also think, just from a personal perspective, if you're partnered up and if you've got kids, have an honest conversation with your partner about what it's going to take for you to be really focused, and what's it going to take for them to be really focused. I mean, we have a client who, she and her husband have just decided that, like, she gets a 4-hour chunk in the morning where she's on call, she's working, but she's, the children know to come to her, and her husband has a 4-hour chunk in the afternoon, and that's what works for them. I think, like, particularly as women, we have this, we talk about this all the time in our executive groups, like, women want to be able to do everything, and we contort ourselves sometimes, and we take on everybody else's stuff, right? And now is not the time to be doing that. Like, your motivation is not going to improve if you're constantly.
Never is the time to be doing that, actually.
Exactly. Yeah.
Actually, never is the time to be doing that. You have to be able to, you've got to be able to delegate. You've got to be able to share duties. You've got to be able to do all of those things. I will just share something extremely personal, but my mother just died. And one of the decisions I made during that process was I was not going to wake up at night. My mother died at home, with us at home. I was all day taking calls from hospice, working, caring for her. And what I realized is if I were going to stay up all night and not get a decent night's sleep, I would, be dropping of a heart attack or something. It was just too intense. And I just made this decision. I said, everybody's got to take a night. So my sons, who were 21 and 23, they stayed up all night with her. They took nights. My sister took a night. My niece took a night. My roommate took a couple nights. This is how you survive during this. There is no prize for killing yourself during this time. I mean, there's no, this idea that you're going to martyr yourself and do everything serves no one. Not yourself, it serves no one, because you're a degraded version of yourself. So I think when it comes to all these meetings and managing your motivation and fatigue, look at what you can let go of too, strategically. Like, look at what you can unload on somebody else and let somebody else share the burden of those tasks. And the last thing I would say, and I don't know if you have anything to add, is when do you work really well? I'm a morning person. I work extremely well in the morning. Early, and I can knock out several hours, and in 3 hours do as much as some people do in an 8-hour day. That works really, really well for me. If I wait and do things way in the evening, my brain isn't as sharp, I'm not as engaged, so my motivation is really, really low. So I think the other thing is understand your work style and when and where you have energy and what you need to get it. Do you have anything else to add to this, Holly?
That was gorgeous, and thank you for sharing that story about your mother. I mean, that's actually a wonderful example of all the stuff that we talk about. It's a genuine, heartfelt story, and I guarantee if you're watching this, you may remember nothing that we said but that story. And that's why storytelling is so important. Thank you for sharing.
It is so important. And listen, it was really hard for me to do. And what I also realize is by not asking, I'm robbing them of the opportunity to spend that time with her and do that with her. So it was really important. Thank you all for being with us. We hope this helps you find some of your motivation. Please be sure to comment or subscribe. And also you can find us on storyimprinting.com. And if you have any suggestions of content you would like to hear more about, please let us know. We look forward to talking to you in the future. Bye.
Bye.